I do like Luque against Themba Gorimbo. Big Luque fan. Been on the match with him at the same time. He was there one day training in Long Island when I broke my leg. Big fan of Luque. Talked to him a bunch of times. Uh, have some mutual friends, but would love to see Luque get it done. I know he had some issues. He had the brain bleed after the Jeff Neal fight. And even with this fight, it's a little bit of a, I don't know if there is a rivalry, but you can say a little bit of a Florida gym rivalry, because I know Themba Gorimbo is from MMA Masters. Luque is from Kill Cliff. Luque now lives in South Florida, so he's full-time at Kill Cliff. So a little bit of that on the line. And then for Luque, every fight's a must-win, but for Luque to still be considered a contender, this fight's definitely must-win for him. And then even that loss to Jeff Neal, I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on Jeff Neal, especially leading up to this fight. Like, I know that's a common opponent that Shavkat and Ian Gary have, and they're both like, oh, well, if you had problems with Jeff Neal, I feel like Jeff Neal had stuff going on in his personal life that was really affecting his fight life. And that's obviously every fighter always has something going on that's going to, jam him up in some way. But I think, I don't think we've all... Luque got a very good Jeff Neal that night. I don't know if Shavkat and Ian Gary got the best Jeff Neal. Like, we've seen some nights where Jeff Neal's in there, looks like a killer, looks like a top 5, top 8 in the world guy. Then we've seen other nights where it's like he kind of looks checked out in there. So you can't sleep on Jeff Neal. A loss to Jeff Neal or a close fight, a competitive fight with Jeff Neal's good. Jeff Neal's really good, and Jeff Neal's definitely an any given night type of guy. He'll be in there. But Luque versus Gorimbo, odds for this fight, they have Gorimbo as a favorite. 130, well, minus 150 for Gorimbo, plus 130 for Luque. A lot of odds around that is what I'm seeing. I like Luque at plus 130. I feel like Luque's now living in America. He's training full time. He's recovered from his brain injury or his brain bleed or whatever he had going on. I think the Joaquin Buckley fight, we're seeing how good Joaquin Buckley is at 170. Joaquin Buckley's got some power at 170. We're going to see him next week against Colby Covington. That'll probably tell us a lot more of where we should rank Buckley at 170. And so far, aces. He's been passing with flying colors. So that's just like the Jeff Neal fight. You can't really... They're both very talented. It's not like you lose to them and you're no longer a top guy. You just lost to another top guy. You know what I mean? So... can't sleep on Jeff Neal. Can't sleep on Buckley. Definitely can't sleep on Luque here. I like Luque in this fight unless the brain bleed and the wear and tear has gotten to him. I know they spar hard at Kill Cliff. Always sparred hard at Sanford. I know he sparred hard in Brazil, wherever he is. He's definitely one of those guys who goes hard in the gym. So I hope that the miles haven't caught up to Luque yet. But I think he's more skilled than Gorimbo. This is definitely a step up for Gorimbo. Going Luque in this fight. And then not financial advice, but that's not the worst parlay. If you want to fade Randy Brown, maybe, but I like Randy Brown, Aljamain, and Luque. And then with Gorimbo, I feel like anytime you talk about Gorimbo, the number one thing fans know about or correlate him with is the whole situation with The Rock, where The Rock bought him a house or whatever was going on there. So I feel like almost takes away from his fighting ability a little bit. He's definitely talented, definitely capable of winning this fight, but gonna root for Luque. Gonna root for Luque in this one. And then after the Luque fight, you have Dominick Reyes versus Anthony Smith. Now, definitely in this one, I was surprised to see Dominick Reyes as big of a favorite as he is. I saw him at minus 355, and Smith was plus 280. But when Dominick Reyes is on, he finishes people early and gets the knockout. So one thing that I did see about this fight leading up was I saw Smith had lost his friend and his coach a few weeks ago and was in his media interviews saying that he wasn't even coming for the win. He was just coming to fight and looking to hurt somebody. So I could see this fight being a slugfest. I don't know how well Anthony Smith does against Dominick Reyes in a slugfest. A lot of times when two guys are swinging, it's a 50-50 fight, but I don't think Reyes is ever making 185. I know Anthony Smith used to fight at 185. I think Reyes is going to be a little bit bigger, a little bit more power. And, maybe it's another one of those fights. I don't know if you pick the over or the under 1.5, but definitely I like the under 2.5. You can see what number that is looking at. But definitely going Reyes in that fight. Big Reyes fan. I think he Was very close to beating John Jones. Just didn't do enough to steal it that night. Could have got the judge's decision, but judging is subjective. It's wherever you're sitting. It's what angle you have looking at the cage, and then also what you're scoring. So if they were scoring the ends of the round, then Jones won 3-2. If they were scoring the beginning of the rounds, then Reyes won 3-2. That fight came down to that third round, which I think Reyes did enough. It was close, but watching it on screen and what we see on the pay-per-view and what you see on the video after, that camera angle is way different than a judge has. A judge has a terrible view. They're always looking. There's people in the way. There's a lot going on. So you got to really be dialed in when you're judging a fight. And I think that was something that maybe happened that night, is maybe the judges just didn't have the right angle, the same angle that we had as the home viewer. But go rewatch that third round. It's how do you score the end of the round that I think really played a factor in that. And Jones was coming on, but I like Reyes here against Smith. Gonna go with Reyes by KO.